So I'll go back to talking about this video that kind of inspired me to say some things.
Is now legal in the UK. The cost of living is soaring and inflation has wiped out 35% of your money in the last 5 years alone. You work three...
I think that's true because money was worth a lot more valuable 10 years ago. So because everything has gone up in value, any money that you had in your bank account, that's going to be worth a lot less. This is actually one of the reasons why I stopped working 2 years ago, because I was thinking I'm living off £6,000 a year. I've got 60,000 in my bank. I'm aware that in 10 years time £60,000 will probably be absolutely nothing, and therefore is there any point in working if by the time I actually come around to spending that money, it's going to be worthless? No, there wasn't. So that was the kind of main reason why I stopped. Inflation was going to mean that any money that inflation meant that the only way I can get the most money out of the money that I've already earned was to literally spend it straight away, and I didn't want to spend it straight away. Why? Because I don't know what I'd spend it on. I'm too depressed to walk into a restaurant and just eat by myself, and yeah, I know the cost is getting a lot. You could be able to buy I could easily find a decent meal under the price of £10. Now I can only afford that in Wetherspoons, and even Wetherspoons are starting to charge more, but that usually includes a drink, so that's better. But yeah, the food in Wetherspoons is not very nice. But yeah, it's impossible to find like a decent meal for cheap. So the money that I've earned over the years is going to be a fraction of how much I actually have. I think the only way to really have it is put it in a property, I guess, because properties are going up, and they're actually going up more. A property value is going up a lot more than money that you have in the bank. If you put money in a bank, it goes up 1% or 1 point, no, about 1%. If you put money in a if you have money in a house, houses do seem to be going up more and more. So that's why I thought it would be better to put. I've always wanted to buy more of my sister's house, but it's taken a while to do that. The problem is once I've got it tied up in a house, I still am poor because I don't actually have any money to spend. And well, I don't know, but to be honest, I feel like I hate this world so much that I'm happy to destroy the economy because I don't give a shit about anyone. I don't like the people that I see when I walk around the streets. I don't like the people that I see in Birmingham, and the more I see people that I just don't link to. I had a dream actually last night that I was just talking with these people. They just looked like normal people, and we were saying some really intelligent things, and they were appreciating me for my intelligence. And then they asked me about Gaza, and I didn't know how they would react, but I just said there's too many people in the world, so if they all died I don't care. And he just looked at me like I was totally crazy or totally shocked that I would say that, and like, oh, but you seem like such a nice person. I'm a smart person. I'm a smart person who realizes that there's too many people in this world, and these Gazans are having babies like rabbits, and they're going to end up spreading. Gaza was a very compact area, and they were having more and more kids. These kids were building up some sort of army, and they were clearly, obviously, going to just take over Israel if they didn't reduce the population or reduce the numbers of them. That was clear that it was going to happen. And if you want to just say that I'm not a nice person for saying this, then you are saying that intelligent people are not nice people because they can see the truth. When you're in a mood where you know that you're an attack. I feel like I'm being attacked because there's a lot of people who can connect with me, and there's a lot of people that can't connect to me and only want to do the opposite of me. And I constantly feel like I'm in attack mode because the number of people who want to do the opposite of me is getting larger and larger. And there's a pyramid system. These are the older souls and these are the younger souls. Now, but in the past, the older souls used to have 2 or 3 lives, and then the newer souls would have 1 life. But over the time, this pyramid it's the same shape, but technically it's just getting more and more people, and the number of lives. First, they would have had 2 lives, and 3 lives, and 4 lives, and 5 lives. Now, some of them might have had 14, 15, 16 lives. I suppose it depends on if they died when they were under 4 or something. They might have 20 lives. But on the whole, as time goes on, more and more people become more and more intelligent. But the thing is, because it's a pyramid system, there will always be far more people who are living their first life than living their 20th life. You know, there'll be always far more people on the bottom side of the pyramid than there are on the top. Now, if the bottom of this pyramid gets so big that there are billions of people living their first life and only 1 or 2 people living their 20th life, well, this army is going to be far more powerful than that army, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people in the middle who see the first lifers as being the same as the 20 lifers, but because they're too stupid, they don't realize that actually you should judge someone by how they think and how they behave and how they act. And therefore I would love the government to have more power, but you need to know your people. You need to know what kind of people you're dealing with. You need to know how to work out a good person versus a bad person. You know, there's some people who look exactly the same. You know, that Nick guy who I think would make a great prime minister versus that bomber that killed a Jewish person and drove a car into them and was hoping to get into a church to slaughter lots of people. You know, they look the same, but you should be able to recognize the difference between these two by how they think and how they act and how they behave and how they see others, how they treat others. You know, I would love for governments to actually have a more personal relationship with these people, know what's inside their heads, and I feel like the only way that they can do this is if you get them to want to sign some sort of paper. Now, okay, they don't trust the government, so they probably aren't going to want to give information like this away, because they're going to want to hide themselves. A lot of people are going to want to hide themselves, but good and bad people are going to want to hide themselves. No one trusts the government, so they don't want them to know these things. But if the government realise that you can judge them by the religion that they choose, Islamic people will either be very ignorant people or people that can't see the right from wrong, because there are plenty of wrong in it and then they can't see. Okay, there's a lot of Christians too. I think if you're a wrong Christian, an upside down inverted Christian, and you just happen to be born into a Christian family, you know, you have probably chosen Christianity not because of being able to see right. No, you might have done it simply because you think Jesus is a white guy, I'm a white guy, I'm going to choose Jesus. You know, that there is racism, it lives inside lots of people. There are plenty of Muslims that are going to think I'm an Arab guy, Muhammad's an Arab guy, so I'm going to choose the Arab guy. But in that same way, there are plenty of Christians that are going to think Jesus is the white guy, I'm going to choose the white guy, not because I actually agree that he's a better person, but simply because he's a white guy. But of course, I'm not going to tell myself that. I'm going to tell myself I like Jesus because of A, B, and C. You know, because he's a man, or he's the truth, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You have to ask them. But you know, so you know, I think it's important that the government know who they're helping and what type of people they actually are, what values they have, what they stand up for, how much truth can they sense. And I think they can easily use me as a way of knowing who can tell the truth from the lies. I know that there are a lot of singers who have believed in lies all their life. And even when they found me, they probably weren't inspired to help me. But I feel like there might be a higher reason for that. There might be Rihanna, I'm pretty sure, turned against me, but I think because she represents my darker side, she was always supposed to be on my darker side, and my darker side does turn against me. So I feel like that there are reasons for people's actions if they are famous, if they have got attention, if they've actually done something. So it's not necessarily about how they think, because sometimes they might think in a certain way to do something that has a bigger or higher purpose. So there's that too. But when it comes to the average person, you know, I think governments need to have not a digital ID as such. It could just be, you know, it could be a barcode that is attached to their passport, but this barcode leads to some sort of hidden information about this person. You know, how many crimes have they done? Have they committed? How many times have they reported someone? You know, to report someone for taking down a flag, I mean, I feel like that's someone who can't tell the different an English flag. If you report someone for putting up a Palestine flag, I think it's still a petty crime, but at the same time, it's England. We're not supposed to be having Palestine flags in England. We're supposed to be having English flags in England, and unless it's like a Palestine shop, if there's a shop that's actually named a Palestine shop, I don't know. Or if there's a French shop and you've got French flags outside there, you'd expect there to be French flags in a French shop. Just like there's an Irish pub down the road, and I always see Irish pubs, Irish flags in there, and it's an Irish pub. You would expect to see Irish flags in an Irish pub. So I understand some flags of other countries are perfectly normal, but yeah, to put other flags, just I don't know, it shows that you're having a loyalty to a different country. And I'd like to know if there are people, if there are people who are Islamic and they convert when knowing about me. It would be nice to know their history. Were they Islamic beforehand? How many people? I'd love there to be a statistic on how many people find out about me and convert out of Islam versus how many people how many Christians find out about me. Having a before and after is good. And I want the governments to use me as a way of, because I know what the truth is, and I am very intelligent when it comes to a lot of things. Okay, I don't know what the truth is when it comes to what the governments are doing. I have no idea. I want to hate Keir Starmer, but on the other hand, I'm wondering, why is he seeming to be so supportive towards Islam? Is it just a lie? Is it just like a way of trying to hide the truth? If I ever show support towards Islam, it's not because I actually feel that way. It's because I would want people to think that I feel that way. Why? I would want the Islamic people to think that I feel that way, whereas I'd want the people who hate Islam to know know the truth. So, I know that when talking to the general public, you've got to be very broad and open-minded when it comes to this, because you want different people to see you in different ways. So I know that there's a difference between what the government are actually doing and what they're trying to convince people that they're actually doing. And because I don't know the truth about so many things, I can't really make an accurate decision on what they're doing. But this is leading me in a position where I'm wanting to give advice, but I might be giving bad advice because I might not know the truth about what they are doing. So I'm trying I want to make that clear. But yeah, I know that I am the key for this, and
the government, and you pay £4,000 a year in government debt interest. Then when you finally pay off your house and you retire, you're looking at 40% inheritance tax, and this is just the beginning.
I think the whole inheritance tax thing, it's going to affect the younger ones even more, because they're not going to be able to inherit, and they are going to get poorer and poorer. I think if the government, though, could recognise the difference between the evolved souls and uninvolved souls, maybe they could even do that. They don't need a digital ID for this. They just need even the passport. Everyone's supposed to have a passport. We've accepted the passport. We haven't accepted a digital ID, but we've accepted the passport. We've accepted that if you want to live in a country, you need to have a passport. So why not use that as the starting ground? Everyone has a passport that has some sort of passport number on it. Now, if that passport number links to some sort of information about them, information that you've collected about them that they might not know about, what religion is important, what views they have, and how much they contribute versus how much they gain. But yeah, if they're contributing huge amounts of money, not to the taxpayer but to rent system, if they've got £4,000 of rent each month, and they're actually working and paying off this rent, even though they might not be paying any tax, the people who own the properties, they might be, or if they are they getting away with it? But they might be paying a huge amount of tax for it. So even if the people who even if people are not paying tax, I feel like there are other ways to contribute to society, which is something I didn't say before, which is that if you're paying £4,000 every month towards a property, and that person, is paying a quarter of their money to the government, then technically these people are paying tax, because they're paying £1,000 of rental income, and that person who's gaining this money is gaining £1,000. So but yeah, are there people who are earning £60,000 a year, paying £20,000 in tax, whilst paying £20,000 towards rent, and only to find that this rent is actually getting taxed another £10,000 because they're giving this money to the homeowner, and the homeowner is paying tax on their money? So it's just like a whole level of slavery. And I think if someone is paying a huge amount of tax whilst also paying a huge amount of rent, or perhaps a huge mortgage to the banks that are literally making huge amounts of money and then getting charged tax on the money that they're paying. I just feel like, rent, because rent is so expensive, someone could be incredibly wealthy and yet have absolutely no money at all, because a huge amount of money is being spent on rent. And if a huge amount of money is being spent on rent, then this isn't money that's just disappearing. No, this is money that's going to someone else who's paying tax, or going to a banking system, or going to someone else who's paying tax, but they have a mortgage to pay, hence they're giving it back to the banking system. So I just, whatever's going on with the housing market, it affects the bankers, it affects the people who own homes, and it affects the government, because they're making money from tax. And to own 60,000, to know 20,000 is going on tax, 20,000 is going on rent that is literally just going towards someone who doesn't even own the house, or maybe owns 10% of it, and they're just giving all this money into the banking system. And really, they're not being charged 10%. They're not being charged 20,000. They're being charged 40,000 for tax. And if the only reason why they only have like £10,000 a year, maybe 8 of that needs to go on the car or something, so they're living off £2,000 a year or something. It's just, I don't know how bad it is, but it would be interesting if you actually did like surveys on different people and learn where their money is actually going. I'm sure there's all these help groups that actually help people try and work out where their money is going. And I think this can tell you, because there are people who might not be contributing tax, but are contributing by paying high rents and stuff. And I feel like I need to mention that, because I keep talking about tax specifically, but there are a million ways to tax someone without actually taxing them through income tax. There are plenty of, where is their money going from? How much are they earning? Where is this money coming from as well? Some people might feel that they have to take jobs that they don't want, like spam companies or something. They might be forced to do this just to pay the rents and stuff. And there's a high level of knowledge that can be worked out, but you can only work this out if you actually do the studies. And I'm hoping that the people in the government aren't just people who think, right, let's see if I can try and justify a £150,000 income, and I'm just going to hope that other people sort out the problems. I'm hoping they're not all like that, but are they? Because I have no trust in the government, so I don't know what to say when it comes to this.
The UK want to tax you even more, and they want a digital ID, and they want more control. There will be no cash soon whatsoever.
I'm not too sure how a digital ID will give them more control. I've heard things in China where you can't travel unless you have a digital ID, and therefore that will give them more control, because they if they don't like you, they can prevent you from traveling. But I've also heard people in China say that they've heard about these rumours, and they've confirmed that it's all lies, and they've never heard about whatever they think they've been hearing. But then I've heard actual people say that they've not been able to travel because of this. So this seems, the whole control, governments being able to control their people, does seem very aerialistic based. But then again, maybe you can use that, if there is a huge amount of Islamic people growing in one area, and Islamic people are more likely to turn to crime because of a religion that tells them to hate infidels, that maybe you should have more control over these areas. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to insult something when there might actually be truth in it. A lot of people might be like, I don't want this ID. How is this ID different to the ID that's found on a passport? I'm confused about that, because a lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to stop you from doing this and that and this. How do you know that it's going to stop you? I mean, how do you know that a passport can't stop you? I mean, a passport number, if a passport number doesn't work, that could stop you from leaving the country. So I haven't heard of someone not being allowed to leave because their passport number doesn't work. But I don't want to insult something when I don't know why the government would be so insistent on it.
You'll get imprisoned for your social media posts. You own less and less and less you give away.
See, the idea of people being imprisoned for social media posts sounds ridiculous, but then again, I have seen loads of posts where people perhaps take Nigel Farage and talk for him and say things that he didn't agree with or doesn't believe in, and I've seen loads of posts where they seem to take Islamic people and get them to say a lot of terrible things. Now, is this a real post? Is this a real Islamic person promoting jihad in England? Or is this just AI? You know, I don't know. And I don't know if it's even wrong to do something like that, because I know Islam is a problem. So if they're taking real problems and then creating AI versions of them to make out, you know, to say things that they are actually saying, but they're just saying in secret, rather than, you know, if you get a person of an Islamic person marrying a 6-year-old and show a false wedding, an AI wedding of this, you know, it's a false image and you're doing something wrong. But at the same time, if the reason why you're doing it is actually to make people aware of how wrong it is that this happens, and yet this does actually happen all over the world, and it might start happening in England if our Islamic community grows, and if they start justifying God or Allah as a reason for why it should be implemented here. You know, social media posts can be good and bad, and you know, there's a lot of liars out there, and it's bad to arrest people over social media posts. But it's true that I don't know what posts they are actually getting arrested over, because a lot of them play it down. Oh, I used a rap word. I played a rap person on a video. I played a rap song on a video, and the song had the word nigger, and then I got sent to prison for six months over that, for using a song that had the word nigger in it when I'm not a black person. You know, to say that is the reason why you got put in prison, when maybe the actual truth could be something completely different, but you've just played it down and turned it into something different. You know, I've just used that N word that I'm not supposed to use. I've said it in a context where I needed to say it because I was explaining something. But if I was to be arrested for saying something like that, you know, it could be misinterpreted that I was using that word, and so even getting arrested over social media posts, you know, I have seen some videos where they're getting arrested over social media posts. But how do I know that these posts aren't fake? You know, if you're arresting people for making fake posts that are supposed to be causing trouble, then maybe there is a justified reason for it.
Way more and more and more, and people wonder why everyone's either leaving the UK or taking the streets to protest. The UK is now the second most...
So there's quite a lot of things that I could say in that video, hence why I needed to say it. But I really, really wish that I could just talk to people about what's going on, why they're doing what they're doing, what the point is, what the outcome is. And I think if I was to tell people that I was God, most people would just say, well, why are you not doing anything? And I would tell them, for the last 12 years, I've known that I'm God. I've been doing whatever I can to get people to listen to me, but no one takes me seriously. No one wants to listen to me. No one, because I don't have fame, because I don't have any kind of wealth or power, no one wants to listen to me. Now, if this is the same thing that my higher self is going through, then I can't change or make anything. You know, I'm making loads and loads of posts on Facebook. Now, if someone was to take these posts and turn it into some sort of AI video of me talking, perhaps just a video exactly like what I'm making now. You know, this is a real video of me talking. But if it's hard to read. A lot of people don't like reading things, and my posts can be quite long. I don't like reading things. I try and reread what I just read, what I wrote, and I actually find myself really wanting to give up. But because of all the spelling mistakes in it, I feel like I have to reread it, just because when you type it in, sometimes they create different words, or they take off half a sentence. It's almost like the read and write thing is actually dyslexic and just doing things wrong. But you know, if people took my posts and then showed it to people, and if people respected it and listened to it and maybe learnt from it, and also recognized that I don't quite know the truth, so maybe I get things wrong because I've not been made aware of certain things. You know, if you recognize all that, then maybe I can do something. But if no one gives me any power or any respect or any attention or anything, then there's absolutely nothing that I can do. And that is the position that I've been in for a very, very long time. And I'm hoping it will change soon. I want to go into a house, and I'm really liking these Elon Musk videos. I know it's not him, and it doesn't matter if it's not him. You know, I think actually I want to have make a different video about that. I'll talk about that in a third video.